Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brittany Nelson, and on behalf of Carosoft Technology Corporation, I would like to welcome you to our Broadcom webinar, Sleeping with the Code Automation Upgrade Training. When code works, you rest. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our first presenter of the day, Bob Schwartz.
Hello, everybody. There's a few folks I recognize, a few companies I recognize, and for those of you that don't know me, my name is Bob Schwartz, and as Brittany mentioned, I'm with Robert Mark Technologies. Before we kind of really dig in, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking your time out to be here today. Obviously, we're here to help you anyway, so it's of benefit for you to be here, but nonetheless, man, with all the different priorities and things on your plate, really appreciate you coming here today. Our goal in doing this, and subsequently there will be many more like this, and we're going to pick and choose certain things that are kind of hot in the AutoSys community, hot in the Atomic community, and so forth. Our goal is to really start to do this more often, which is really, again, to benefit you all, to obviously connect us with you so that you understand that we know what we're doing. We do this all the time. But we want to really get you as much information as possible so you can be successful with your AutoSys solution. So a step in that process is us putting together this webinar to show you what it looks like to do the upgrades. The interesting thing about that is our organization does many upgrades, and you'll see in the subsequent slides that we go through. But we have to be able to establish some credibility that we know what we're talking about. And so thus these couple slides are doing that. So, let me continue. Again, my name is Bob Schwartz, and I've been in this space for 25 years in the workload automation space. I worked with a couple thousand different companies, and I've seen about everything. I also have with me Bob Lusheen, who I think is really important. He's kind of a pioneer in the upgrade world in that he's always the first one to do the latest releases that come out. He's upgrading folks all the time. He was by far the +1 resource in the world to do R12 upgrades when that was a real hot commodity. And now he's obviously doing upgrades to the R12 plus releases and now the R24 releases. And that's what we're talking about today. So we're kind of your guest speakers for today to help you get through this, look at, hear what we have to say, show you what it looks like to do an upgrade. So again, as I mentioned, a little bit about us. We're 20+ year partner to Broadcom and CA. We've been doing this a long time. Our labels and titles related to that are Tier 1 reseller, which is effectively, there's some folks on this call that we work with you from a licensing perspective. Some of you we may not, but we can if you want us to. We're also Expert Plus Advantage partners, which is more on the services side, which effectively means if anyone needs any kind of professional services and reaches out to Broadcom, we're their first point of contact that they go for from there. And then Broadcom Nights are basically the highest level of tier that you can get as a consultant within Broadcom related to certain particular software solutions that they have. We have 25+ years of mainframe and distributed workload automation experience. And I believe we're over 200 collective years of experience. And so there's not many other organizations, if there are any other organizations that have that amount of experience that we do. We're full service expertise. And what that means is, number one, we cover the map as it relates to Broadcom's products under the workload automation umbrella. But on top of that, we do a lot more than that. We help with conversions, we help with assessments, we help with we have managed service offerings. We even do an MSP that if licensing, you wanted to fall under an MSP, we can help and be creative on licensing related to that. We have experience with a lot of the biggest shops in the world, and there's a few that are on here that are quite large, and we've worked with almost all of them. And then we also work with some of the smallest and everything else in between. And so the last bullet on this particular slide is really about what are we here for, right? We're here to connect with you. We're here to help you in reducing your cost of ownership. And there's a lot of things that I just talked about that help you do that. We also have an ACE product, which we'll talk about later, that helps you reduce the cost of ownership by automating lifecycle management. That is a product that's been around for a while and continues to get better. So anyway, the point of this is We're here to help you. Next slide, please. So I won't speak to each and every award, but what this shows is that you can't get these awards from Broadcom if you're not doing right by their clients. And so we've done a really good job. We've worked really, really hard. Some of the things that we've done, some of you that are on this call, we work with you on cadences. So we go through, in fact, we just had a cadence before this, and on our website, under blog, you'll see a lot of the information that we do on cadences. And those cadences are effectively to help us connect with you so that we can show you some of the latest, greatest things that are coming out. They may come from Broadcom, they may come from Gartner, they come from all different areas. We take them and put them in a central area where you can go to and you can get everything you need related to what industry standards are, what's new with R24, what's the roadmap look like for AutoSys, all those kind of things are out there. So my point in that is that we do a lot to help our clients that we're connected with do more with their AutoSys solution. And so the couple things at the bottom, 1,500 engagements, 775 upgrades. Now, if that doesn't provide credibility that we know what we're talking about, I don't know what does. 150 conversions, and again, 25 plus years of doing this. Next slide, please. Okay, so we want you to stick around. We think the content is good enough to have you stick around. However, we're going to do a couple things. First of all, if you have questions, we're going to answer them live at the end. The second thing is we have an exclusive first ever opportunity you won't want to miss. You want to stick around. Again, as I said, I think the content's good enough. Bob has so much experience. You can glean a lot from him. But if that wasn't enough, this little teaser should be. So anyway, stick around. Next slide. Okay, the last slide I'm going through. So AutoSys version 12 goes end of support December 31st, 2025. Not sure if you knew that. That might be one of the reasons why you're here. But if you didn't know that, you might be a wee bit surprised. That time comes very quick. So between us and that date is summer and vacations and family vacations and other priorities. So our recommendation is to start considering what you need to do to be, to be in a position to do the upgrade. What is end of support? End of support means if you have an issue or a problem in your environment and you need Broadcom support to help resolve it, and you're end of support, so you contact them Jan 1, 2026, they're going to tell you you need to reach out to RMT, and this almost always they say RMT, reach out to RMT to help with a formal engagement to resolve your issue. Now, we typically do that because a lot of issues are configuration, but you don't want to be in that position anyway. So start planning now and get yourself upgraded. What to do if you get near that date? So if you get to December, a lot of people are, again, taking vacations that they'll lose if they don't use and all those kind of things. So you don't want to be in that position. But if you were, a couple things that you can do. One, upgrade yourself. Number two, contact us and we'll get you there very quickly. Or number three, there is the option of getting extended support. And the extended support is via Broadcom. We're the vehicle of that extended support, but we've done it many, many times. So if there's too many priorities and you're not in a position to be able to upgrade, then certainly look at RMT's extended support and we can help you at least get a stay of execution so that you can get your environment supported while you figure things out and get upgraded. Next slide, please. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to somebody much more intelligent with this stuff than me. And I will say there was a time when I was the Bob Lusheen of the world, and that's probably some of you folks that are on this webinar that might remember that, but I'm not that guy anymore. So I got to have Bob Lusheen chat with you all. So with that, Bob, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be presenting for you today, and hopefully we can answer some technical questions and non-technical questions as far as planning and doing an upgrade. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is obviously Broadcom has changed their versioning number to 24. And the reason that they've done that is they're going to a 5-year product life cycle. And so version 24 came out in 2024. It actually was released on October 30th, 2024. Therefore, the end of life for that product will be October 30th, 2029. So it will be easier for you to know when your product is going to go out of support, which Bob just talked about. So obviously any new releases that come out in 2025 will be V25 and so on. So they've changed their versioning numbers. We're going to talk a little bit about if you're going to upgrade, what version should you upgrade to? And do you do the latest release or N-1? So this is a debate. So today we have had customers that didn't want to upgrade to version 24 because they didn't want to be the first ones on the product. Well, as of about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 321 Service Pack 1 came out for version 24. So now version 24 is N-1. The only reason that I can think of not to go to version 24 would be is if you're not prepared for the new GUI changes that are in the WCC or the web UI on version 24. And we're going to give you a demo down a little bit later here of the version 24 changes. We're going to give you a peek at the GUI if you haven't seen it yet. The back end of 24 is all the same as the version 12. It's really the web interface that's changed. There's a newer version of the EAM, but from a practical perspective, it's the same as what you've been using all along.
Hey, Bob, before you
Yes.
flip on to the next section, I did forget one thing, that we were going to do a poll. So I apologize. It's important, I think, for everyone to be able to articulate where they're at in their versions and where they're going to and all of that kind of thing. So I apologize. Brittany, will you please post some of the questions for the poll? There's only 3 questions. I'll talk through them if need be. The first, well, I'll wait for you to post, Brittany, sorry. Okay,
No worries.
for everybody.
You'll see a pop-up, and if you're not seeing one and you're possibly connected to multiple screens, check all your screens because it might have popped up on a different
Oh, yeah,
one
I've
that you're
seen
not
that.
looking directly at.
Okay, so the first question is, what version of AutoSys are you currently on? So be discreet if you want, just mention what version you're on. And then also, the second question is, which version are you going to? Now, Bob, maybe give them the 2 that we would recommend, and maybe they can decide that. But I think you were saying, and you're getting to the idea of, we've done enough due diligence, we've done enough work that version 24 RMT itself feels very comfortable recommending. But what's the other one that they would?
So version 24.1, which is Service Pack 24.0.1 is Service Pack 1, or 12.1.01, which is
Okay.
12.1 Service Pack 1.
Perfect. Okay, so those are the first 2 questions. And the third one is really, when are you looking to upgrade? 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, or 12 plus? Oh, I guess, and there's also, yes, if you scroll down, there's a couple other. So basically, I'm not upgrading, or yes, but not sure when. Okay, so we'll wait just a minute or 2. Sorry, Bob, to interrupt you. I forgot.
Looks like we're almost at half of the participants' responses right now. So
Well, this window is up anyway, so as we go through the presentation, you can still answer it. Please make sure you answer it. I mean, the idea around it is to collect all the information so we know kind of who's in what percentage and so forth. So please enter the answers if you can. All right, Bob, back to you.
Okay, so the next section is we're going to go through what's new in the releases for you so that you understand with each version what some of the major features are in the versions. So we'll start with the key differences between AutoSys 11.x and AutoSys 12, and then we'll go from 12 to 24, 12.1 to 24, and show you the differences. And then we'll give you a live demo of the 24 web interface. So changes in the product from 11x to 12.0. So the installer was improved. There's an installer that pretty much walks you through step by step all the information that it needs to do the install. And the installer, it used to be in 11X in the older versions that you had a CD for this, a CD for WCC, a CD for scheduler, a CD for EAM. You had all these different installers that you had to run. Now you run one installer and it installs all of the components for you. And then there's a separate CD that is an agent CD that includes all the agents and all the plugins for all the agent versions. So for all the operating systems, it's all on one ISO image. In 12.0, they went to full native 64-bit support. There's no more 32-bit code at all. They went to a web services orchestration for both SOAP and REST. So they added a REST API. A lot of folks used, it was a SOAP API in 11.x, and now now you install a REST API, and under this version, there was pretty good support for being able to run AutoSys CLI commands through a REST interface. So you could check statuses on jobs, you could manipulate jobs, you could force start jobs through a REST interface. There was a lot of things you could do. You'll see that in the later versions, they've actually expanded on that, and now it's a pretty full REST API in 24. So they improved the web UI collector. So the collector process performance is improved. It was migrated to 64-bit, but also a lot of the collector functions are done through the REST API. And so the performance is better. It's a lot more accurate. It's quicker to build if you have to delete the cache and recreate the collector data. In 12.0, they introduced password vault support, but the only support that was introduced was for semantic privileged access manager. And what this means is instead of using AutoSys Secure for your Windows jobs, user IDs, and passwords, you could point it to the semantic privileged access manager and it would pull that information out of PAM. But the only vault that was supported in 12.0 was PAM. They added centralized agent upgrade into the web UI. So they're in the agent, they added the agent inventory tab, I believe, in Service Pack 8 of 11.6. And they expanded on that, and you can do centralized agent upgrades through the agent inventory tab. A big one that came in version 12 was the ability to rename a job. And in the past, in 11.x, if you needed to rename a job, you basically had to delete that job and recreate the job. And then you had to go to any jobs that had dependencies with that job and do an update of those jobs to update the dependency strings. Now with 12.0, when you rename a job, it renames any reference to that job. So if there's dependencies in other jobs with that name and you change the name of the job, it changes the job name in the dependency. So very easy to point and shoot and rename jobs now. The other problem before was when you deleted the job and recreated it, it comes in as a new job and you lost all your job history. With the rename job function, you don't lose any of the history of the original job anymore. You're just renaming a label. In this version, they made the JOID or the job ID the key value for the job, and the name of the job was just a label attribute to the job. So they're really just changing the attribute and not changing the JOID itself. We talked a little bit about the REST web interface, custom schema owner for Oracle and custom databases. So you can set your schema owner in the databases. And anytime you see platform and database certifications, it just means that they've added support for a new database version or operating system. So the changes from 12.0 to 12.1. 12.1 was not a service pack, it was a major release. So they added CyberArk integration in along with PAM. So if your company uses CyberArk to store your service account, user IDs and passwords. You can point AutoSys to CyberArk and not use AutoSys Secure. And it makes managing the passwords a lot easier. You don't have to go into AutoSys Secure when you update passwords. The AutoSys integration, they added an integration with Kubernetes and OpenShift, and they added job types for those. They extended the ability to create and manage connection profiles and security profiles if anybody's using those. So they added out on the AutoSys documentation page, they added a Swagger page where you could actually go out and test the syntax of your REST commands. Makes it a lot easier to write REST to create accurate REST commands. They allowed override action capability without write permissions. You used to have write permissions in the EAM on the job to do an override, and now that's a separate security policy item. You can attach job logs and spool files to your emails. If you have a job that abends and you're sending emails on those jobs, you have the ability to attach job logs and spool files to that email as an attachment. The ability to run jobs using a GMSA account. They modernized the job types. So some of the job types, they updated things in them. These are more for Kubernetes types jobs, REST jobs, HTTP jobs. They extended attributes on some of those. They made some agent inventory improvements. You can now preview and edit GIL files from the Enterprise Command Line tab before you import them. You can show or hide job properties in Quick Edit now. They added some accessibility and platform and database certifications. So more support for more OSs and more databases with 12.1. All right, changes from 12.1 to 12.1.01, which is 12.1 Service Pack 1. 12.1.01 included an integration to ServiceNow. So what that means is your jobs will now have ServiceNow attributes in them that allow you to, you can open tickets directly when a job abends or on any of the job status changes. You can open tickets directly into ServiceNow from AutoSys. You don't need a middleman to do that. And you add job attributes that will allow you to change, for example, the ticket queue that a job goes into, the priority and the severity of the job. You can custom set those per job with ServiceNow attributes in the job attributes. And if you're doing GIL, those job attributes carry over into GIL. You just add those attributes into your GIL, and it's a pretty simple configuration. It uses the REST API for ServiceNow, and got a lot of customers using it. It was a big improvement for them. There's SNMP version 3 trap support. If you're doing SNMP traps, you can talk to multiple PeopleSoft instances using the PeopleSoft agent now. That was added in 12.1.01. Again, more platform and database certifications and support for the CAEAM 12.6.6 version. And then last on the changes, changes in the move from 12.1 to version 24. So for the AutoSys database, we had before Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, and Postgres, Sybase support. And now they've added Postgres SQL support. And they've also added Postgres SQL support to the WCC. In the past, you either had to use Derby, SQL Server, Oracle. You couldn't use Sybase. You still can't, but you can use Postgres database for WCC database. There's a data migrator if you want to switch from your current database type into Postgres SQL. So the web UI has changed drastically, and we're going to show you that shortly. So there's a lot of enhancements in the web UI, and we'll go over those. There's one of those enhancements is a new monitor tab in the UI. We're going to show you that. And there's a global search function in the web UI. So there's in-product help screens now, in-context help screens. We're going to show you that. And then there's also an AI-powered intelligent automation assistant, and we're going to show you that. And I'll start by stating this AI interface, or this AI engine, uses a private data source from Broadcom AutoSys. It does not use internet data, and it does not use any of your data, and it does not collect your data. They've built a data repository that it accesses to answer the questions. We'll show you that. So incident management integration, we talked about that. Single sign-on using SAML 2.0. More platform and database support. I think one of them was it now supports Windows 25. Support for the newer versions of CAPTCHA and EAM. And global variable substitution for the Oracle user and Oracle RESP global variables. And then in 12.1 Service Pack 1, there's just a few changes. There's a bunch of bug fixes, or not a bunch. There's a few bug fixes. Most of them I went through are minor. There's, again, more certifications for different versions of database and operating system. Oh, it's 24.01 where they did the Windows 25 support. There's some enhanced header information in REST calls. And they now include the join and the run ID and entry values in one of the messages. So pretty much minor, mostly fixes. And now I'm going to bring you over to a demo. Give me a second here to bring this up. Okay, so let's see. This is the new, that's the EAM. This is the new interface for version 24. So we're going to log in. So for those of you that you do customizations to the GUI, if there's anybody out there, you can do background color customizations, but like changing the text and changing the logo is not available yet. They're talking about that being out in the next release. So this is what the new interface looks like. So it brings up the dashboard page like it did in the past, but notice that there's really no tabs across the top anymore. All of your items that were tabular items are now in a menu bar over on the left side of the screen. It has all of the same items that your tabs had. It's just in a menu format. So that's change number one. It still has the old monitoring tab that it used to have. So the monitoring tab with your views is all the same. However, there is a new monitoring tab, and that monitoring tab is a different display of your views. So these are the two views that I have in my environment. And if we click on successful jobs as an example, it'll show us all the jobs that are at a success status. So my filter for this view is basically jobs where the status equals success. So it's going to show me all the information. From here, though, if I wanted to take a job and run it, I can come over here to the actions menu. Let's highlight a couple of jobs. We can come over to the actions menu and you can change status for start the jobs. You can export job definitions from here. You can export the view. And you can look at any alerts that are out there for those jobs. I don't have any right now. The other functionality that you can do here is let me go into one of my jobs and you'll see my job runs are not here. There should be job runs here for this. Give me just a minute. Make sure I'm looking at the right job. Yeah, this is the one. It'll list the current job runs. I think mine have deleted because they're all basically were successful or the successes go away. But what this will allow you to do is you can click on a failed job run. It'll show you all the past runs. And when you look at the history, you can look at the job logs from here. And when you look at the job logs, you can actually do a diff between multiple runs of job logs. So if I have a successful job and a failed job in the list here, I can look at the standard out files for both of those jobs side by side, and it'll do a diff for me on those job logs. So that's a new good feature. Up on the top here is a new search functionality. If I type a name, it'll show me any jobs with that name value in there. So, and I can click on it and it brings it up here. Oh, here it is. Here's all my job runs. So if I come in here and I do, I click on this failed job run right here, it brings me up this interface. And I can go to the standard output on this, and it's going to show me the standard out for that job. If I want to compare that to a successful job, I can pick the job run that I want to compare it to, and it's going to show me the difference in those logs. So that's new functionality. And it actually has a find function. If you had a big long job, you had a big long job string, a job string in your standard out, you can do a find on it and find text inside the log. And I can go and I can do, I can perform an action on any of these. I can force start the job again if I want. Let's see what else here. So that's the new search results. There is so yeah, let's go into the quick edit tab where we would create a new job. So for those of you that are on 11.3, this is going to be all new to you. For those of you that are on 12.0, some of this is going to be new to you, but there's a new form for creating jobs. So if we go to the create function and I go to a command job to create a command job, it now has a different form for creating your jobs. It's more of a tabular view than a form view. However, all of these tabs down here contain all the same data that you had in the old interface. They're just on a tabular format instead of in a form that it was before. You can also just do a pull down and pick the agent from the list that you want when you're plugging job attributes in. So this is something you're going to need to train on if your end user community is not used to this interface. This is a big change for creating jobs. So when we view a job in the quick view tab, it still looks the same. So if I go to quick view and I just pull up one of my jobs, this looks the same. But if you click quick edit from here, as in today's world, it's going to bring up this new form. So any job edits are in this form. So that's a big change. If I go to the help button up here on the top, here's the new help menu, and I'm in the quick view tab, so it's going to give me quick view help. If I need more information, like I don't know how to create a new job. I want to create a new job. I can go up here to the little icon up in the help bar, and that's the assistant icon. It'll bring up the assistant. And then if I type, how do I create a job? And then I click the go button. This is using AI from their data source to answer my question. So it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to create a job. You go to quick edit, you click the create job button. So it defines you how to do that. If I ask it, how do I create a command job? Even with my misspelling, let's see if it it should give us what we're looking for. There you go. Creating a command job. It's AI, so it figured out what I actually wanted, even though I mistyped it. And it's giving you all the job attributes for a command job. Okay. So there's some new functionality in the help module. I believe that this AI stuff can be turned off if your company has a problem with it. That's pretty much the changes in the web interface. Just a different look and feel, but something that end users would have to be trained on. And I'm going to go back now and reshare the slides. Okay. Okay. All right. So now I want to take a few minutes and talk about upgrade path. So there's really two paths to upgrade. You can start with new hardware and a new database, or you can do an upgrade in place. So you also have the ability, if you do the new hardware, new database path, you have the ability to change database types if you so desire. So you can change, for example, from Oracle to Microsoft SQL Server if you need to be, but there's some caveats to that, and we're going to go over it. So here's the pros and cons to doing new hardware and a new database. With new hardware, you get a hardware refresh. You can get up to the latest and greatest version of the operating system. You can change operating systems. If you're a Windows shop and you want to go to Linux, now's the time to change. You can do that without changing your backend database. You can run Linux with SQL Server or Oracle or Postgres, and vice versa. You can run Windows with any of the database types. You can change the database engine also if you're doing new hardware and new database. But there's a couple disadvantages to that, and we're going to talk about that. The cons to that is you got to have duplicate hardware until the migration is complete. So you're going to have your old environment and you're going to have hardware for your new environment, or VMs, whatever you're using, but you're going to have duplicates until you retire the old stuff. And if you go with new hardware and you have firewall rules, as an example, out to your agents, you're going to have to make sure that the firewall rules are migrated to the new hardware so that your agents can talk to the new machines. There's two ways to migrate when you use the new hardware database type. You can do a database migration or an object migration. You cannot do a database migration if you're changing database types, and we'll talk about that here. The database, there is no utility. Well, so let's go through these steps. The way you do a database migration is you back up the old down level database, your 11.3x database, 11.6 database, whatever it is, And then you restore that database over the new version 24 database that you created in your new environment. So now you've got a down level database that's at version 24. We run some scripts against that database to bring it up to 24. When you do it this way, all of your machine definitions, all of your objects are retained. All of your statuses, your job histories are retained. So if you had a job that was in a running state and you took the old system down to do the migration, when you back up and restore the old database, that job is going to be in a running status. Since when the job finishes, since it has no scheduler to talk to, it'll cache the information. And when the new scheduler connects to that agent, it'll bring in that job status of the completed job. So it's very seamless to do it this method. The thing is if you're changing database types, there is no backup and restore for those database types. So then you have to do an object migration. When you do it this way, another advantage is, excuse me, your original system is your backup plan. If when you do the migration, something isn't right, you shut the new system off and you go back to the old system, you haven't touched it. It's intact the way it was. An object migration adds complexity and time. And it's because you need to migrate all of your objects manually, all of your calendars, all of your jobs, all of your machines, all of your global variables. Any of your objects have to be exported and imported manually. And that may mean, well, like, for example, when you export your jobs into a GIL format, it may mean changing the order of things so that things load back smoothly. If you have dependencies, the dependent jobs have to be loaded first. In order to not throw errors. You can actually load a job with a dependent job that doesn't exist in the database, but it's going to throw an error or a warning. And then the other problem with doing an object migration is you don't retain any of the job statuses or any of the job histories. So all of those jobs will come into the database as new objects. An upgrade in place is the other option. The advantages are you don't need new hardware. You don't have to do firewall rules because you're using your same hardware. And you don't need a new database because you're going to upgrade your existing database. The negatives to it are you can't change OS because you're using your same hardware. An upgrade in place almost never goes without issues. Something always doesn't load correctly or start correctly in my experience. So you better be ready to troubleshoot issues. You need to have good backups and snapshots if they're VMs of your servers and databases, because you're upgrading your hardware in place so you have no backout other than those backups. And if your environment is not clean, if you've got old logs out there from a year or two ago, you're going to start your new environment with an unclean environment. You're going to start your upgraded environment with an unclean environment. And then the last piece is you can change database engines doing an upgrade in place, but you have to upgrade the current database and then migrate your objects to a new database or do a backup and restore. Depending if it's SQL Server to SQL Server, you can back up the old and restore it if you need to change databases. If you're changing database types, then you would export all your objects and import them in to the new database. So it'd be manual, and the same caveats include you wouldn't be able to save job statuses or history, etc. Tips and best practices for a successful upgrade, and that is start early, make your decisions early, and do your homework. Some of the things to look for. It might be best to engage RMT and utilize our experience because we've seen it all. But whether you engage us or not, you want a plan of attack. You want to have an upgrade strategy, and you want to document that. Meaning, for example, If you're going to version 24, you're probably going to have some training that's going to be necessary before you can fully migrate even your development environment to new. You're going to have to train your user community. So have a plan of attack. Understand all the pieces that are going to need to be done to have a successful upgrade. Make critical decisions early. Decide if you're going to use what type of upgrade you're going to use. Decide what OS you're going to use, what database you're going to use. Are you going to use embedded Java, or are you going to use a system Java? With the new software, you can choose the Java location that you install to, which means if you don't want to use the embedded Java that comes with the product, you can use an open source Java, install it as part of your operating system, and then your OS teams will be responsible for upgrading that Java. So you got to decide which Java you're going to use. And then you need to decide your migration method. Are you going to do an upgrade in place? Are you going to do a migration with new hardware? And what changes are you going to make to OS and DB? And then the last thing is make sure that all the prereqs are completed. You're going to need a database client, no matter which database you use. You're going to need your Java laid down if you're going to use an external Java. And you need to go through the documents and make sure all the operating system prereqs are there. So, for example, Linux requires libNSL modules. So you want to make sure that all the proper operating system components are there so that you're ready to do the upgrade itself. And now I'll turn it back to Bob.
Thank you, Bob. All right, so we appreciate you sticking around. I think most everybody did. Thank you so much. Hopefully you saw value in that. As I mentioned before, we will be doing a lot of these. And not a lot as in once a week kind of thing, but a lot as in maybe once a quarter, once every other quarter, with all of the kind of the hot items that you might be interested in. And oh, by the way, if you have a topic you would like us experts to talk on, we're happy to take that as well. But as I mentioned, so here's our offer to you for sticking around. So with December being the end of support timeframe, we are already getting a lot of folks that are asking us to engage. We have resources, but we don't have, a million resources. So therefore, it is imperative that folks get get at the top of the stack for helping with their upgrade. So Bob talked about a few different things. We don't cover all of it. There's a lot of nuances that happen with upgrades. If you want our help and you need our help, then email us within the next 48 hours. Put top stack priority in the subject line, or just say, hey, I attended the webinar and I'm really interested in chatting with you all about helping us upgrade. And you would email that to info@robertmarktech.com. That is at the bottom of this. And the other thing that I told you we'd talk a little bit about it, but this is the spot we'll talk about it. So some of you may know that we have a lifecycle management automation product. We've had it for a number of years. One of the benefits of that product is it basically automates everything related to making change in AutoSys. We're continuing to evolve that. One of the things we're adding to that tool is the ability to track, monitor, and manage executions in your environment. So one of the things that we're doing is creating a dashboard so that you can see where I'm at with licensing related to where I'm at with usage versus my licensed amount of executions, even getting down into the applications themselves that are using the executions. And then we're also creating a health check that you can go out and we'll basically look at your executions and make recommendations on where you can trim executions to keep yourself under that license amount. So that isn't the bread and butter of the tool. The bread and butter of the tool is the ability to automate change, and we're very good at that. There's a lot more to that particular product. What we're also offering is a free whiteboard session. So what that whiteboard session looks like is we'll sit on a call with you, spend an hour or two with you. You tell us how you make change. We'll come back to you and tell you where ACE can benefit and help you. And at that point, if you decide it's not a fit, then so be it. You only wasted an hour of your time, but we'll also provide you very valuable feedback on your environment, because that's also what we do. We're consultants. And so The other piece to that is we'll also, if it is a fit, then perfect. We just take it to the next level and continue on. But you'll get to see the product a little bit. More importantly, we'll do a whiteboard session for you. So again, email us at info@robertmarktech.com. If you have an idea for a webinar you would like to see us do, like for example, the integration with ServiceNow, right? A lot of folks have talked about that. If that's of importance and you would like to see a webinar, also email us at info@robertmarktech.com. We'd love to hear from you. It helps us determine we're going on the right path and doing the sessions that you want to see. So anyway, last thing I'll say, we're going to move on to the questions, but thank you so much for joining. Thank you for spending your time, and hopefully you saw value, and stay tuned for the next one. So questions, do we have any questions at all? I think you have to chat. You have to put it in the chat, right, Brittany?
Yes. So if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen. And I also want to just say thank you, Bob and Bob. We really appreciate you speaking with us today. And again, if you all have any questions, put them in the Q&A pod at the bottom of your screen. We'll give you all a few minutes.
Is Bob that good? It's fantastic.
I guess so.
Okay.
All
Looks like
right.
there's no questions. So, and if you did have a question, somehow you weren't technically able to put it in there. Wait, let's see, is there a Q&A?
See.
Oh, there is a question. Bob, can you do an in-place upgrade from 12.0 to version 24 directly, or does it need to have hops?
You can do it directly. You can actually go from 11.3.6 to 24 directly.
Well, hello, Brian Kellerman. Good to see you. I think that's it. That might be it. Okay. Any other questions? Would love to see a session on plugins options, especially S3 file watching. Cami, that's all you. I love that. That's exactly what we want to see. I think folks do want to see more on what plugins look like, how to set them up, and how to do integrations and such. So yes, that is definitely on our list, and now certainly S3 file watching is at the top of the list. So thank you, Jason. Any other questions? Any other recommendations that you would like to see? Yes. So the short answer to that is yes, they do offer that. It's within a window. So the question for everybody is, do you provide temp license keys for version 24 for clients to test? The short answer is yes. The longer answer is within a time frame, they'll allow dual operation of the systems within a normalized time frame. If you're talking 6 months, 8 months, yeah, they won't allow that. If you're talking just a few months, then yes, they do allow that. Good question. All right, we're keeping poking and prodding you guys. You're putting out good questions. Keep them going. Any other ones? Would like to see best practices to reduce job runs under new licensing agreements. That's a good one. Yes, so there's technical ways with the product to do it. We can certainly set up a session on that. We'll probably also demonstrate our product and its ability to kind of show dashboards and that kind of thing. So Jason, to answer your question, ACE will pay for itself with the amount of executions that it will help you reduce. But yes, we can do a session that says, hey, if you don't want to have ACE, here's what it looks like. And if you want ACE, here's what it looks like. The short answer would be look into ACE. But yes, that's a good one. Any other ones? Would it be helpful to actually have a webinar on ACE so you could see all the ins and outs of that particular product? Would that be beneficial? Sandbox license for learning. I think that they would allow a license key, but by the way, if you're in the execution based, you don't need a license for it anyway. And in fact, I should have remembered this. I was old school thinking, Oh, thank you. The old school thinking was you have to pay for instances. If you're on the execution model, you don't have to pay for it. So you can have Sandbox, you can have a separate version while you're doing the upgrade. I apologize for the answer I gave earlier. That was not correct. Unless you're not on the execution-based licensing, which most of you are. And so that particular licensing model allows you to leverage as much as you want. Sandbox, another separate, V24 instance. Yeah, there's no issues if you're on the execution-based model. And yes, we will do an ACE session within the next probably 3 to 6 months. So we will invite you all to that as well. And then, Bob, do you see this question? I am currently
do.
running 12.0. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So 24 is supported on AIX still. My issue with Sybase, there's nothing wrong with having Sybase for your backend. My issue with Sybase is you can't run your WCC database on Sybase, which means you're stuck with Derby or another database. And the answer is you could stay with AIX, you could go to Linux, and you could change your database type. But again, when you change your database type, unless you're going to Postgres, there is no tool to migrate your data. So that means it's a manual export and import of all the data, and you lose history and status of your jobs. If you go to Postgres, there is a migration tool. So I hope that answers your question. But so customers ask me, what operating system should I be on? What database should I be on? My answer to the customer is always, what position is your company? What position? What products is your company in the best position to support? If you're a Windows shop, run it on Windows. If you're an Oracle shop, run it on Oracle. It doesn't matter what operating system is. You can mix it and match it with any database type. So in other words, just because you're on Windows doesn't mean you need to use Microsoft SQL Server. You can use any of the database options. And from a product perspective, it performs the same. It really doesn't matter. So my answer would be, if you're trying to get off AIX, the migration time would be the time to do it. But if you like AIX, install 24 on AIX. And if you need to switch your database type, then it's just a manual database switch.
Got a couple more. So I did get one from Jason saying AAI session. Absolutely. I think that'd be beneficial as well. We'll put that on the list. This is great. Thank you for all the feedback on that. And then Bob, there's a couple more technical ones. You got 30 seconds for each. We're going to keep everybody.
Sure. So the option to restart a job automatically does not exist, even in 24. What are the benefits of SQL to Postgres? My guess is licensing.
Costs, right?
Cost.
Yeah. Technically, I don't think there's much else, is
No,
there?
it's supported on Postgres, so it'll run fine on Postgres. Since it's new with 24, I don't have a lot of experience with it on Postgres, but my guess is it's cost.
Fantastic. Okay, no more open questions. We're already a little bit past the hour. Thank you so much for sticking around. Hopefully it was beneficial. Stay tuned for our next one. We'll be sending out emails, so watch for them, and we'll let you know what our next webinar is. Thank you again for showing up, and have a fabulous day.
All right, thank you all. Thank you, Bob and Bob, for being with us this afternoon. And I want to thank all of our participants who joined us today. We hope this webinar has been helpful for you and your organization. If you have any further questions or would like to request more information, please feel free to contact us via the information on the slide. Thank you and have a great day. All right, bye everyone.